Well, today we are going to touch on an always controversial topic, which is abortion. Not always fun to talk about, abortion and the sanctity of human life. Of course, there's debate as to when life begins and whether the unborn fetus is human or not. So joining us from Edmonton is Cameron Wilson. He is the executive director of the Wilberforce Project, or TWP. Cameron, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so can you first of all tell us what TWP is?
So the Wilberforce Project is an Alberta-based pro-life organization that focuses on politics and getting political change that will save lives through passing laws. And so That's our focus.
So in a nutshell, there you go. Okay, so my understanding is the Government of Canada's view is that life does not begin until after the fetus fully exists, or rather fully exits the birth canal. And there are many who agree with that sentiment. So how would you respond to that perspective?
My response to that is actually quite simple. Our value as human beings comes from being human beings, not from where we are. It's what we are, not where we are, that gives us our rights. And we know that the preborn child in the womb is just as much a human being as you or I outside of the womb. And if human beings have human rights, then all human beings have to have human rights. And those rights need to start when the human life starts, which is at fertilization.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we know just from looking at the ultrasounds that there's a heartbeat and the child is moving. You can feel it moving in the womb when you are pregnant. So when does the unborn baby's heart actually begin to beat?
Approximately 21 days, they will start having a heartbeat.
Okay. My understanding is that one of your recent campaigns is your Right to Hope campaign. So can you explain what that is? I think it has to do with the Alberta policy that babies who survive an abortion and are born alive are actually left to die, right?
So the Right to Hope is about parents who give birth to a baby prematurely. And right now, I believe it's at 23 weeks. Before 23 weeks, there's no requirement for doctors to provide care, even if parents want them to provide care. Now, we know from the United States that these babies have often been provided care and can survive when the care is properly given and when the effort is put in. But here in Alberta, the official policy is that we don't do that, regardless of the opinion of the parents. And so our policy on Right to Hope is that parents should have the right to make that choice. They have the right to the hope that their child might live. And so there's a whole raft of policy changes that need to come in to make that happen. You need to have the resources at the NICU for those types of babies. You need to change the exact policy and those types of things. So there's a whole raft of things that can go into giving parents more rights to fight for the lives and for the survival of their extremely premature babies. Now, the issue that you're talking about is another issue that we have here in Alberta, which is that the statistics officially provided by the government of Alberta and by the government of Canada indicate that babies are born alive after an abortion here in Alberta, and that they're left to die afterwards. And obviously that's a moral tragedy, because this baby, even under the odd legal framework of Canada, where you don't become a human being until you've gone through the magical birth canal, right? That's the position the government of Canada currently has. But even under that, this is a human being who's now being left to die because they were slated to die before they were born. And now that they are born, they're still left to die by lack of any care. And that's a moral tragedy, I think everybody agrees with, regardless of where you're on the abortion debate. It's hard to argue that a newborn baby should just be left to die because people wanted it to die before it was born.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like it's only a baby if the parents wanted it. Cameron, question, do you have the stats, for example, on how often something like this actually happens, where a pregnancy termination actually fails, I guess, or the baby survives it?
So my understanding is that it depends on the year, obviously, but between 5 and 10 per year is my understanding here in Alberta. I don't have the stats right off the top of my head, but that's the approximate number of times.
Wow. So I looked up the policy, and according to the Alberta Health Services policy on this, The policy directs that when a live birth occurs after a termination procedure, the focus is on palliative care to minimize suffering, like you were saying. So rather than providing that intensive care. So for abortions performed after 21 weeks gestation, the policy outlines the need for careful documentation and consideration of a do not resuscitate order if a live birth occurs. Yeah, so I'm also being told that in Alberta, premature babies delivered before 23 weeks, which I think is what you were talking about earlier, face that similar policy, don't they? So Alberta does not allow any active care for that baby.
So my understanding is that there are doctors who are willing to risk it and say we're going to provide care, but doctors aren't required to do so, and the policy is that they shouldn't before 23 weeks. And so while there are heroic doctors who are like, let's do what it takes to save the baby, my understanding is that as it stands, there's a requirement that Alberta Health has that care is not provided.
Right.
And the do not resuscitate order is required to be signed by the abortion doctors before the abortion is performed in case the child comes out. Now, my opinion on this is if a mother and father have decided to kill their child, once the child is born, they should be wards of the state, because obviously they don't want that child. That's why they're having the abortion, and so that child should not be bound by the do not resuscitate order of their parents in that circumstance.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you, let's say, like what's the alternative if they were to change this policy about not resuscitating? What is the alternative, or the alternative rather? And is it, how viable is that infant at that age if they did survive? Could there be health or mental complications throughout their lives? I realize this could be a case-by-case basis, obviously, but if the policy changed, what would that even look like? Would they be put up for adoption, like you said, wards of the state?
Mm-hmm. And so in the US, you have laws that require doctors to work to save the lives of any child that's born alive. Melissa Ohden, who's actually going to be coming to the March for Life this year to speak, is an American who survived an abortion being performed upon her, a saline abortion. She came out alive, and she was ultimately put up for adoption. And now she's here to tell her story about what happened and how it happened. And there's a variety of experiences. Some people who have survived abortion have been, severe burns. Some people have, a whole raft of other issues that came out of it. And some of them are fairly okay. Just like surviving any sort of trauma, it really depends on where exactly the trauma impacted. Before you can make that statement, like a car accident, right? It depends on where you were in the car when the car got into the accident, where the forces were applied to determine what the outcome was. And so, and the same is true of an abortion. And I'm willing to believe that a lot of children who are born alive in pain, or that death is fairly certain very imminently as a consequence of it. But we do know from the United States, and we do know from other jurisdictions, that some are born alive and can be kept alive. And here in Canada, we just don't give them that chance.
Yeah. Are you able to share a little bit more about Melissa Ohden's story? Do you know more details of her?
So Melissa Ohden is the founder of an organization that speaks about, that is for survivors of abortion, and organizes them across the world. Her story is that when she was 14, she got the news from her adoptive parents about kind of where she came from and how she ended up in their family. And she went looking for her birth mom. And her birth mom was actually told that she was dead. That their child.
So the mother didn't realize she survived it.
The mother had to live for 14 years with the belief that she had killed her child, when that wasn't true. And her grandmother, who was also there, apparently advocated for her being killed after birth. But thankfully, the doctors followed the laws in the United States or in their state, and that did not happen. And the whole story is about the reconciliation between her and her mom and her family, and the immense grace that she found in that circumstance. And it's quite a powerful story, but it's also quite a tragic story. It's only by accident that this mother was saved from killing a child who became a great blessing to her. And that should be something that concerns us more, considering how prevalent abortion is in our society.
Yeah, so they rekindled. That is just an incredible story. And you were mentioning that Melissa is going to be speaking. There's an event taking place in Edmonton, right? The Alberta March for Life.
Yes, the
Can
Alberta
you
March
tell
for
us a
Life
little bit
is
about that?
tomorrow at noon. So if you can make it down to the legislature in Alberta at noon tomorrow, there's going to be a great celebration of the pro-life movement. We'll have a lot of different speakers, including Melissa Oden, who will be, telling her story and giving us some encouragement. And this event is the one of the largest annual events in Alberta. It's one of the largest annual protest events in Alberta, and we're going there to encourage our legislatures and encourage our society to build a culture of life and hopefully to start passing more laws that can protect lives.
Wow. Also, for our viewers in the Lethbridge area, a quick reminder that the annual Lethbridge Hike for Life will be taking place on May the 30th. There's just so much to unpack here, talking about these policies and whatnot. When it comes to something like the AHS policy of the do not resuscitate, is it up to AHS and the medical staff to make those decisions? Is it up to politicians to change this? How did it happen in the United States?
So the way this works is the Alberta Health Services answers to the Minister of Health. And so the Minister of Health has the right to make changes to these policies and say, these are things that I want to see implemented in my department as we move forward. So where that policy about 23 weeks original or had its origins, I don't know. It could have been a bureaucrat 15 years ago who put it in, and as part of a raft of changes that they put in, and probably in good faith, that's what they thought was a good policy. I'm not saying that they're a bad person or anything like that. But the ability to change it is right there at the minister's table, and she just needs to change the regulations. She already has the legislative authority to do so, and we hope that she advances that, makes progress on that issue. It doesn't need legislation or the entire legislature to pass it.
Right. And it's an interesting topic too. It's a policy I think that most of us are not aware of. Mm-hmm. And are politicians even aware of it? If it's an AHS policy?
Yeah, I mean, there are millions, I believe, of regulations that govern our lives on a daily basis, and hundreds of thousands of those come from our provincial government. So it's utterly unreasonable to expect all politicians to know all of those regulations that are over us at any given point in time. So I think most politicians are unaware of this specific policy. I think that's one of the most powerful tools we have is just talking to our politicians about things like this, giving them the heads up that this is happening and giving them the chance to do something about it, because they can't possibly be expected to know all the things that need to be changed. And sometimes they just need people to talk to them about it and give them the information, and hopefully the system will work and get it done, make the change.
Right. Cameron, thanks so much for being with us today. Really appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, Cameron Wilson is the Executive Director of the Wilberforce Project. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.